The stars above Earth's orbit flickered as massive ships materialized from hyperspace. They appeared one by one, each vessel larger than anything humanity had ever constructed. The alien fleet hung in the darkness like predators circling prey, their hulls gleaming with unknown metals that seemed to drink in starlight rather than reflect it. Captain Daeho Kim stood in the observation deck of Lunar Command Base, his coffee growing cold in his hand. He had been reviewing supply reports when the alarm sounded. Now he watched the impossible sight through reinforced glass, counting silently. 17, 20, 35 ships. The count kept rising. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said the communications officer, her voice tight with tension. "It's on every frequency." "Every single one." Daeho nodded and walked to the command center, his boots echoing on metal floors. Around him, officers moved with practiced efficiency, but he could see the fear in their eyes. First contact. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries, built telescopes and sent messages into space, wondering if they were alone. Now they had their answer, and it came with warships. The main screen flickered to life. The alien that appeared was nothing like the movies had predicted. It stood on 4 legs, its body covered in what looked like purple chitin. Multiple eyes blinked independently across its elongated head. When it spoke, the translation software struggled for a moment before producing words in flat, emotionless English. "Primitive species of the third planet, you have been evaluated by the Galactic Council. Your civilization has reached the threshold of space travel and thus falls under Council jurisdiction. You will surrender all military assets immediately. You will submit to Council law and governance. You will provide 40% of your planetary resources as tribute for the privilege of Council protection. You have 48 standard orbital periods to comply. Refusal will result in pacification protocols. This message is non-negotiable. Compliance is mandatory." The transmission ended. The command center fell silent. Daeho looked around at his team. Someone coughed. Then Lieutenant Soo-Jin Lee, normally the most composed officer on the base, let out a snort. She tried to cover her mouth, but it was too late. The sound escaped, half laugh, half disbelief. "Did they just—" She started, then laughed again. "Did they seriously just demand we surrender?" To them, Daeho felt his own lips twitch. The absurdity of it hit him like a wave. Humanity had spent the last century preparing for war with itself. Every nation had weapons that could crack continents. They had kinetic bombardment systems, fusion warheads, railguns that could punch through mountains. They had fought 2 world wars and countless smaller conflicts, refining the art of destruction to a science. And these aliens thought they could just show up and demand surrender? "Dead Admiral Park on the line," Daeho said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "And someone forward this to Earth Command. They need to see this." Within an hour, the transmission had reached every government on Earth. President Taeyang Choi convened an emergency session of the Unified Government in Geneva. Representatives from every nation gathered in the Great Hall, their faces projected on screens for those who couldn't attend in person. The alien message played again. The room remained quiet until it finished. Then someone in the back started laughing. It spread like wildfire through the assembly. Within minutes, the entire hall echoed with laughter, the kind that comes from shock and genuine amusement mixing together. President Choi raised his hand for silence. It took several minutes for the room to settle. "Colleagues," he said, his own smile still visible, "I believe we should respond to our visitors. Does anyone object to informing them that Earth respectfully declines their generous offer?" The vote was unanimous. Admiral Min-Seo Park personally drafted the response. She kept it simple and polite, the kind of diplomatic language that humanity had perfected over centuries of international relations. She thanked the council for their message. She acknowledged their impressive display of force. She noted that humanity had heard their terms clearly. Then she declined. Simply, clearly, without room for misunderstanding. The response was transmitted on the same frequencies the aliens had used. Every ship in their fleet would receive it simultaneously. Admiral Park added one more thing to the message, something that felt appropriate. She attached a sound file. Human laughter. Just 30 seconds of genuine human laughter from the assembly hall. Back on Lunar Command Base, Daeho watched the alien fleet's response. For 6 hours, nothing happened. The ships hung in orbit, silent and still. Then the communications officer reported new activity. "Sir, they're transmitting again. Same frequency pattern. This time, a different alien appeared on screen. This one looked almost humanoid, but its skin shifted colors like a cuttlefish, betraying what might have been anger or confusion. Your response has been evaluated. You do not understand your situation. We are the Galactic Council. We have pacified 312 worlds. We have maintained galactic order for 10,000 of your years. Your laughter is meaningless. Your defiance is meaningless. You have 48 hours. Choose wisely, primitive species. Choose survival." The transmission ended again. The command center was quiet now, the earlier humor fading. The threat was real. The ships were real. Whatever weapons they carried were certainly real. Daeho looked at his team. "Get everyone ready. Start running combat simulations. I want every defensive system checked and rechecked. And somebody get me a line to Mars Station. If they want to fight, let's make sure we're ready to give them one." Sujin looked up from her console. "Sir, do you really think we can win?" Daeho thought about humanity's history. The wars, the conflicts, the endless cycle of violence that had marked their evolution. They had fought with sticks and stones, then swords and guns, then missiles and nuclear fire. They had never stopped improving, never stopped finding new ways to fight. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when a species spent millennia doing nothing but perfecting warfare. Win? Daeho said quietly. "Lieutenant, they made us laugh. That was their first mistake." The Galactic Council's Intelligence Division had made their assessment of Earth 3 months before the fleet arrived. Their scout ships had observed from beyond the solar system's edge, cataloging technology and military capabilities with instruments refined over millennia. The reports had been clear and unanimous. Earth possessed primitive fusion drives, crude kinetic weapons, and defensive systems that would barely scratch Council armor. The conquest would take days at most. Council Fleet Commander Vex Tal reviewed these reports from his flagship's command throne, his crystalline body refracting the dim light into rainbow patterns across the walls. He had overseen 47 planetary pacifications in his career. None had taken more than a week. Most species surrendered immediately when they understood the futility of resistance. These humans, though, their laughter still echoed in his memory. No species had ever laughed before. Fear, yes. Anger, common. Desperate bargaining, almost always. But laughter? His xenopsychology team had no explanation. "Deploy forward fleet," Vextal commanded. "Standard blockade formation. Target their military installations first. Show them we are serious." 100 Council warships broke formation and moved toward Earth. Their shields powered up, creating shimmering barriers of energy around each vessel. Plasma cannons charged. Targeting systems locked onto the various military installations scattered across Earth's surface and its moon. This would be educational for the humans. A demonstration of power they couldn't ignore. Commander Hyam Woo-Beek watched the enemy ships approach from Mars Station. His first fleet hung in the shadow of Phobos, one of the Red Planet's moons. their reactors running cold to avoid detection. The station itself looked like an ordinary research facility from the outside. The Council scouts had probably cataloged it as such and moved on. They had no idea what Mars Station really was. All ships maintained silence protocol. Haiyan-Wu transmitted on quantum encrypted channels. Let them think they're in control. On my mark, activate the delivery system. The Council fleet moved into Earth orbit with the confidence of apex predators. Their formation was perfect, refined through 10,000 years of military doctrine. Each ship knew its position, its role, its targets. They would rain fire from the sky and accept Earth's surrender by nightfall. On Luna Command Base, Lieutenant Sujin Lee sat at her tactical console, fingers dancing across holographic controls. In front of her, dozens of screens showed the approaching enemy fleet. Behind her, magnetic accelerators hummed with barely contained power. The railguns had been built into the moon's surface itself, disguised as mining equipment and research installations. Range optimal, she reported calmly. Firing solutions locked. Captain Deho stood behind her, his face carved from stone. Weapons free. Fire at will. The railguns spoke first. They made no sound in space, but their fury was visible. Tungsten rods, each weighing several tons, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. No energy signature. No warning. Just mass and velocity obeying physics in the most violent way possible. The first Council ship exploded before its sensors even registered the threat. The projectile punched through its energy shield as if it didn't exist, through armor that had withstood plasma fire, through the ship itself and out the other side. The kinetic energy transfer vaporized the vessel from inside out. Then another ship died. And another. The railguns fired in steady rhythm, each shot carefully calculated, each target precisely selected. In the first 60 seconds, 19 Council ships simply ceased to exist. Aboard the flagship, alarms screamed. Vextal's xenopsychology team had been wrong about human psychology, and his intelligence division had been catastrophically wrong about human weapons. Return fire. Activate all defensive systems. Find the source of those projectiles. But the railgun rounds came from the moon, from Earth, from Mars, from locations the Council hadn't even thought to check. Humanity had weaponized its entire solar system. Haiyan-Wu's First Fleet powered up their reactors and emerged from Phobos' shadow. The Council sensors detected them immediately, but by then it was too late. The human ships launched missiles, thousands of them, each one on a slightly different trajectory. The Council's defensive systems engaged, shooting down hundreds, but not all died. The missiles that got through carried no conventional warheads. Instead, they released clouds of nanomachines, each one smaller than a grain of sand and programmed with one purpose. They attached to Council hulls and began eating through armor. Molecule by molecule. Council Fleet Commander Vextal watched his forward fleet disintegrate. 47 ships destroyed outright. Another 30 compromised by the nanomachini swarms. The survivors retreated in disorder, their perfect formation shattered by an enemy that didn't fight by any rules his people understood. "This is impossible," his second officer said, their voice translator struggling with what might have been fear. The reports said they were primitive. Vextal didn't respond. He was busy recalculating everything he thought he knew about the system. The humans didn't fight with honor. They didn't announce their attacks. They didn't give warnings. They just killed with ruthless efficiency, using weapons that seemed designed specifically to counter Council advantages on Earth. President Taiyang Choi received the battle reports in his secure bunker beneath Geneva. Around him, military advisors and government officials processed the information with grim satisfaction. The first engagement was a success, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. Casualties? Choi asked. 3 defense satellites destroyed, Admiral Park reported. 18 personnel injured when a Council plasma bolt hit Luna Base's eastern sector. No deaths, Choi nodded slowly. And their casualties? 47 confirmed ship kills. 30 more damaged. Conservative estimate puts their losses at 12,000 personnel. The room fell quiet. 12,000 lives ended in less than 10 minutes. Choi felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders. This was what humanity did best and worst. They killed efficiently. They killed without hesitation. They had spent thousands of years learning how. Send a message to the Council, Choi said quietly. Tell them we're still willing to negotiate. Tell them this doesn't have to continue. But even as he gave the order, he knew they wouldn't listen. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They wouldn't let one primitive species humiliate them without response. They would escalate. They would bring more ships, more weapons, more death, and humanity would be ready. Because if there was one thing humans understood better than any species in the galaxy, it was how to fight wars they couldn't afford to lose. Vextal stared at the tactical displays, watching his fleet regroup at a safer distance. The humans had surprised him once. It wouldn't happen again. He would call for reinforcements. He would adapt his tactics. He would crush this rebellion and make an example of Earth that would echo through the galaxy for ages to come. But deep in his crystalline core, in a place he didn't have words for, Vextal felt something he'd never experienced in his long career of conquest. He felt uncertain. And uncertainty, for a Council fleet commander, was more dangerous than any weapon. The Galactic Council had never lost a war. In 10,000 years of expansion and consolidation, their combined military might had proven unstoppable. When Fleet Commander Vextal's reports reached the Council chambers, the 17-member species convened an emergency session. The images of destroyed ships scrolled across their viewing screens. The casualty numbers climbed. High Commander Morvine, a towering being composed of what looked like liquid metal, addressed the assembly. This human resistance cannot be tolerated. We have committed 200 ships to the Earth system. I propose we increase that number to 3,000. We will overwhelm them with sheer force. The vote passed unanimously. No member species voiced concern about overkill. The Council had a reputation to maintain. If one primitive world could defy them successfully, others might try. Better to crush Earth completely and remind the galaxy why the Council remained unchallenged. 3,000 warships entered the solar system over the next 72 hours. They came through hyperspace in waves, each fleet larger than anything humanity had ever imagined. The ships blotted out stars, their combined mass creating gravitational distortions that Earth sensors detected from millions of kilometers away. On Luna Station, engineer Boram Yoon hadn't slept in 4 days. Her team worked around the clock, converting anything and everything into weapons. The mining equipment that had excavated lunar ice became mass drivers. The scientific satellites orbiting Earth became kinetic missiles. Even the trash from the International Space Station, decades of accumulated orbital debris, became a minefield when placed in strategic orbits. "This is insane," one of her engineers said, watching as they programmed navigation thrusters onto a container full of obsolete equipment. "We're literally throwing garbage at them." But Maram smiled tiredly. At orbital velocities, garbage hits just as hard as a missile. Besides, they're expecting sophisticated weapons. They won't see this coming. She was right. When the Council fleet moved to establish a complete blockade of Earth, they encountered the debris fields. Their sensors detected the objects but classified them as space junk, not threats. The result was predictable. Ships traveling at high speeds collided with containers, abandoned satellites, and chunks of old spacecraft. The objects tore through hulls and disabled systems. It wasn't elegant warfare, but it was effective. Colonel Sung-Ho Park commanded the ground-to-space batteries hidden across Earth's surface. The installations had been built over decades, disguised as research facilities, power plants, and mining operations. The Swiss Alps housed particle beam weapons. The Sahara Desert concealed railgun arrays. Deep ocean platforms held missile systems that could reach orbit. The Council's intelligence had missed all of it. They had looked for obvious military installations and found them. What they hadn't realized was that humanity didn't separate civilian and military infrastructure the way Council species did. Every factory could produce weapons. Every power plant could feed a defense grid. Every human settlement was a potential fortress. Incoming enemy bombers, the tactical officer reported. 300 ships breaking formation, heading for major population centers. Sung-Ho activated the defense network. Around the planet, hidden installations came to life. The Council ships suddenly found themselves flying into a storm of fire. Missiles rose from mountains, deserts, and oceans. Energy beams lanced up from camouflaged facilities. The Earth itself seemed to be fighting back. Dr. Yeonwoo Nam watched the battle from his underground laboratory beneath Seoul. Around him, his research team monitored their latest deployment. The nanomachine swarms had been just the beginning. Now they were releasing cyber warfare packages, microscopic drones programmed to infiltrate Council computer systems. The drones were elegant in their simplicity. They mimicked cosmic radiation, something no ship could completely shield against. Once inside enemy systems, they multiplied and began rewriting code. Navigation systems started reporting false coordinates. Weapons targeting developed errors. Some ships even turned on their neighbors as their friend or foe identification corrupted. "It's working," Yeonwoo's assistant said, unable to hide her excitement. "Their fleet coordination is falling apart." But Yeonwoo didn't celebrate. He understood what they were doing, what humanity had become. They weren't just fighting a war. They were demonstrating every dirty trick, every underhanded tactic, every psychological weapon they had developed while fighting themselves. The galaxy was getting a comprehensive education in why humans were dangerous. The battle raged for 3 weeks. The Council kept expecting humanity to break, to exhaust their resources, to finally accept the inevitable. But the attacks kept coming. New weapons appeared daily, each one more creative and horrible than the last. Admiral Minseo Park coordinated the overall defense from a command ship that jumped between Earth, Mars, and Luna using short-range FTL drives the Council didn't know existed. She had studied every battle in human history, every successful defense against superior numbers. The pattern was always the same. Make the enemy pay for every meter. Never let them rest. Never let them think they're winning. Deploy the Psychological Warfare Division, she ordered. Across every communication frequency, humanity began broadcasting. The messages were tailored to each Council species based on intelligence gathered from captured databases. They exploited fears, cultural taboos, and psychological vulnerabilities that each race thought were secret. One species received broadcasts that mimicked their religious death songs. Another heard sounds that triggered instinctive panic responses in their biology. A third found themselves watching simulations of their home worlds under attack, so realistic that several ships broke formation to rush home, only to discover the deception hours later. Fleet Commander Vex Tal watched his carefully planned assault collapse into chaos. His 3,000 ships were still vastly superior in numbers, but numbers didn't matter when you couldn't coordinate them. The humans attacked from unexpected angles. They used weapons that made no sense. They employed tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare, and worst of all, they never stopped adapting. Every time the Council tried a new approach, humanity had a counter within hours. It was as if they had been preparing for this war forever, refining their strategies against an enemy that didn't exist yet. In a secured communication to the council chambers, Vextal made his report. These humans are not like other species we have encountered. They do not fight to defend territory or resources. They fight as if war itself is their natural state. They have turned their entire civilization into a weapon. Every human is a soldier. Every structure is a fortification. Every piece of technology serves dual purpose. He paused, his crystalline body dimming with what might have been exhaustion. I recommend we escalate to final measures. Anything less will result in unacceptable casualties. We need to end this before they adapt further. High Commander Morvine received the recommendation with growing dread. Final measures meant the Planet Breaker, a weapon used only twice in Council history. It meant genocide. It meant destroying Earth completely rather than conquering it. But looking at the casualty reports, looking at the images of destroyed fleets and demoralized commanders, Morvine made the decision. The humans had to be stopped. If they couldn't be conquered, they had to be eliminated. The alternative was too terrifying to consider. A species this good at war, this dedicated to violence, couldn't be allowed to spread beyond their solar system. Bring the Planet Breaker to the Earth system, Morvine commanded. Prepare for total planetary destruction. Humanity has made its choice. Intelligence Officer Haewon Kang had been monitoring Council communications for 17 days straight. She worked from a hidden facility in Antarctica, surrounded by quantum computers and signal analysis equipment that represented humanity's best cryptography efforts. The Council used sophisticated encryption, but they had underestimated human persistence and creativity in code breaking. When the transmission came through from Council High Command, Haewon felt her blood turn to ice. Planet Breaker weapon authorized. Arrival in Earth system in 4 hours. Prepare all fleet elements for immediate withdrawal to safe distance. She hit the emergency alert button. Red lights flashed throughout the facility. Within seconds, her superiors were on the line. Are you certain? Admiral Park's voice was steady, but Haewon could hear the tension underneath. Yes, ma'am. Cross-referenced with multiple sources. They're bringing their extinction weapon. 4 hours until it arrives. 4 hours to save the world, or watch it die. President Tae-Yang Choi received the news in the Geneva bunker. Around him, the Emergency Council assembled. These were the leaders who had guided humanity through the war, who had made impossible decisions and lived with the consequences. Now they faced the ultimate choice. Options? Choi asked us simply. Defense Minister Jin Suk-yang spoke first. We can evacuate key personnel to Mars and the outer colonies. Save maybe 10,000 people if we start immediately. And abandon 8 billion? Choi's voice was flat. Next option. We surrender, someone suggested. Maybe they'll accept it now. Maybe we can still... They're bringing a planet killer, Admiral Park interrupted. This isn't about surrender anymore. They've decided we're too dangerous to live. Choi looked around the table at faces that reflected humanity at its best and worst. Leaders who had united their species for the first time in history. Warriors who had defended Earth with brilliance and brutality. Scientists who had turned knowledge into weapons. All of them waiting for his decision. Protocol Omega, Choi said quietly. Authorize it. The room went silent. Protocol Omega was theoretical. It had never been tested at full scale. The physicists said it would work, but the margin of error was significant. If they were wrong, they would die. If they were right, they would reveal humanity's deepest secret to the entire galaxy. Sir, Admiral Park said carefully, once we activate Omega, there's no hiding what we can do. Every species in the galaxy will know. Then let them know, Choi replied. Let them all know what happens when you try to exterminate humanity. Physicist Minho Song had spent 15 years working on the Omega Project in a secret facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. The technology had started as an attempt to create clean, unlimited energy through quantum field manipulation. They had succeeded beyond expectations. The reactors could tap into the fundamental forces of reality itself. But like everything humanity touched, the technology had military applications. Terrifying ones. Activate all Omega stations, Minho ordered his team. Full power to the field generators. We're going to need every station working in perfect synchronization. Around the planet, hidden facilities came online. They had been built over a decade, disguised as geothermal plants and research installations. Now, they revealed their true purpose. Each facility housed quantum field generators that could manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. The planet Breaker emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. It was a ship unlike any other in the Council fleet. Ancient and massive, it looked more like a flying city than a warship. At its core was a weapon that had destroyed 2 worlds in Council history, both times to eliminate threats deemed too dangerous to exist. Fleet Commander Vex Tal watched from his flagship as the planet Breaker began its firing sequence. The weapon required enormous power to charge. Antimatter reactors deep within the ship fed energy into a device that would compress that antimatter into a beam of pure annihilation. When it fired, Earth would crack like an egg. The planet's core would destabilize. Within hours, nothing would remain but debris and radiation. Weapon charging, the planet Breaker's commander reported. Estimated time to full power, 8 minutes. On Earth, Minho watched his displays as the quantum field generators reached maximum output. All across the planet, reality itself began to shimmer. The generators were creating a bubble of altered space-time around Earth, kilometers thick. That would bend and redirect any energy that tried to pass through it. Field stability at 98%, his assistant reported. We're ready. Minho sent the confirmation to the command center. Earth was as protected as humanity could make it. Now they would see if theory matched reality. The planet Breaker fired. A beam of concentrated antimatter, bright enough to illuminate the entire solar system. Lanced toward Earth, the weapon carried enough destructive force to vaporize continents, shatter tectonic plates, and turn a living world into a lifeless rock dot. The beam hit Earth's quantum field and simply vanished. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. The Council fleet watched in stunned silence. The planet Breaker's sensors showed the weapon had definitely fired. The energy readings were correct. But Earth still existed, unmarked and untouched. Then the antimatter beam reappeared, redirected by quantum manipulation that the Council didn't know was possible. The beam emerged from the distorted space around Earth and traveled back along its original path, the planet Breaker's. Crew had 5 seconds to understand what was happening before their own weapon destroyed them. The ancient ship exploded in a flash of light that briefly outshone the sun. 7,000 crew members vaporized instantly. The flagship of Council extinction technology, the weapon used to end worlds, became nothing more than expanding gas and radiation. Admiral Park watched from her command ship as the planet Breaker's signature disappeared from sensors. She felt no joy, no triumph. Just the cold satisfaction of a threat eliminated. She opened a channel to the entire Council fleet. Council forces, this is Admiral Mencio Park of the United Earth Defense Force. We did not want this war. We offered peace. We tried to avoid bloodshed. You responded with threats of extinction. Today you learned that humanity will not be exterminated easily. Your planet killer is destroyed. Your fleets are broken. You have lost more ships and personnel in 3 weeks than in your last 1,000 years of conquest. She paused, letting the words sink in across hundreds of alien bridges. Leave our solar system now. Leave and never return with hostile intent. This is your only warning. The next weapon we deploy will not be defensive. Before the council could respond, Ambassador Ji Wuhan's transmission began playing on all frequencies. It was a carefully edited compilation of human warfare throughout history. Ancient battles where millions died. World wars that consumed continents. Nuclear weapons that could end civilization. Chemical and biological horrors that violated every natural law. 2 hours of humanity's darkest moments, with one simple message underneath. We did this to ourselves for thousands of years. We survived it. We learned from it. We became very, very good at it. Are you certain you want to continue fighting the species that treats warfare as an evolutionary process? Fleet Commander Vextal watched the transmission in his command chamber. He saw humans killing humans with creativity and efficiency that made council pacification protocols look gentle by comparison. He saw weapons designed not just to kill, but to terrify. He saw tactics that exploited every psychological vulnerability, every weakness, every fear, and he understood. The Council had encountered a species that had spent its entire existence at war. Not occasional conflicts between nations, but constant, continuous warfare that drove innovation and adaptation. Every human generation had refined the art of killing until it became instinct. High Commander, Vextal transmitted to the Council chambers. I recommend immediate withdrawal. These humans cannot be conquered by conventional means. They have technology we don't understand. They have tactics we cannot predict. And most importantly, they have a relationship with violence that makes them fundamentally incompatible with Council philosophy. In the Council chambers, the 17 species voted. For the first time in their history, they chose retreat. The decision was unanimous. The Council fleet began its withdrawal 72 hours after the Planet Breaker's destruction. They left in ordered formations, maintaining military discipline even in retreat. But everyone watching knew the truth. This wasn't a tactical withdrawal. This was defeat. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council was running from a fight. Captain Daeho, Kim watched the alien ships disappear into hyperspace from Luna Command Base. He had been awake for 96 hours straight, sustained by stimulants and determination. Now, as the last enemy vessel vanished from sensors, he finally allowed himself to feel the exhaustion. It's really over? Lieutenant Sujin Lee asked quietly. This part is, Daeho replied. But everything else is just beginning. The Council had requested a meeting on neutral ground. They chose Station Unity, an orbital platform at the edge of Council space that served as a meeting place for diplomatic encounters. President Tai Yang Choi arrived on a human destroyer that deliberately matched the design aesthetic of Council warships. The message was clear. Humanity could build what the Council built. They could go where the Council went. They were equals now, whether the Council liked it or not. Inside the station's main conference chamber, the 17 Council species waited. They sat in the positions traditionally reserved for petitioners and conquered peoples. In the center chair, where Council leadership usually sat during surrender ceremonies, President Choi took his seat. The role reversal was not lost on anyone present. High Commander Morvine spoke first, their liquid metal form rippling with what might have been discomfort. President Choi, the Council acknowledges that our attempt to bring Earth under our jurisdiction was unsuccessful. You tried to commit genocide, Choi said flatly. Let's not use diplomatic language to hide what happened. Silence followed. None of the Council representatives could dispute the facts. We came here to discuss terms, Choi continued. Not terms of Earth's surrender, but terms of peace. We have no interest in continuing this war. We never did. But we will not accept subjugation. We will not pay tribute. And we will not allow the Council to threaten other developing species the way you threatened us. Fleet Commander Vextal, attending as military representative, spoke up. You propose to dictate Council policy? No, Choi replied calmly. We propose to join the Council as equals. We propose mutual recognition, open trade, and diplomatic relations. We also propose a complete restructuring of how the Council deals with newly spacefaring species. No more demands for surrender. No more forced tribute. No more threats of extinction. And if the Council refuses? Commander Morvine asked. President Choi gestured to Admiral Park, who activated a holographic display. It showed a map of Council space. Red markers indicated human colonies, established in the 3 weeks during the war. There were 6 of them, each one placed in strategically significant locations that the Council couldn't afford to ignore. We didn't spend the last month just fighting, Admiral Park explained. We were also exploring, colonizing, and establishing permanent presence in regions you considered secure. Those colonies are armed. They're defended, and they're not going anywhere. The Council representatives stared at the map in disbelief. Humans had somehow managed to fight a war, defend their homeworld, and simultaneously launch the largest colonial expansion in their history. The audacity of it was staggering. You used our own hyperspace routes, Vextal said, understanding dawning. The cyber warfare packages didn't just disable our systems. They copied our navigation data. We're fast learners, Admiral Park confirmed. The negotiations lasted for 3 days. The Council tried various approaches, from legal arguments to veiled threats. But every time they pushed, President Choi simply reminded them of the alternative. Continue the war against a species that had just proven it could destroy their most powerful weapon and colonize their space while defending its homeworld. The final treaty was revolutionary by Council standards. Earth became the 18th member of the Galactic Council with full voting rights. Human colonies were recognized as legitimate. A cultural and technology exchange program was established. And most significantly, the Council officially abolished its policy of forced capitulation for newly spacefaring species. Ambassador Ji Wuhan remained at Station Unity as Earth's permanent representative. She spent her first weeks in office learning about Council politics, history, and the complex web of alliances that held their civilization together. But she also began something new, establishing relationships with other species who had been conquered by the Council, who remembered what it felt like to have their sovereignty stripped away. The seeds of change were planted. The Council would never be the same. Back in the solar system, life slowly returned to normal. The defense installations remained operational, but no longer on highest alert. Trade ships from Council space began arriving, bringing alien goods and curious visitors who wanted to see the world that had defeated the COUNCIL. Dr. Yan Wu Nam and engineer Bo Ram Yoon found themselves leading a new project, adapting human technology for peaceful purposes. The quantum field generators that had saved Earth were being converted to power stations. The nanomachines designed for ship destruction were being reprogrammed for manufacturing and medicine. Weapons became tools, just as they had so many times throughout human history. But not all the weapons were dismantled. Admiral Park oversaw the construction of humanity's first interstellar carrier, a vessel designed to project human power across the galaxy. She named it carefully, choosing words that would remind everyone, human and alien alike, of what had happened when the Council tried to subjugate Earth. The ship was christened The Last Laugh, in a ceremony attended by representatives from a dozen alien species. As the bottle of champagne shattered against its hull, Admiral Park gave a short speech. This ship represents humanity's promise to the galaxy. We are not conquerors. We do not seek to dominate or subjugate. But we will never again be threatened with extinction. We will defend ourselves. We will protect our allies. And we will laugh in the face of anyone who thinks they can push us around. The alien guests didn't fully understand the laughter that followed. Laughter remained a peculiarly human response, one that most council species found confusing. But they understood the underlying message well enough. 5 years passed. Human colonies spread across council space and beyond, into regions that the council had never fully explored. Human technology became increasingly common on alien worlds, traded freely and adapted creatively. Human culture, music, art, and literature spread like wildfire through alien populations who found something compelling in humanity's chaotic, violent, creative approach to existence. The council tried to maintain their traditional authority, but cracks appeared. Species that had been conquered centuries ago began demanding renegotiation of their treaties. Younger civilizations refused to submit to council jurisdiction, citing Earth's example. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was the catalyst dot in the council chambers. Now, with 18 seats instead of 17, Ambassador Ji Wuhan stood to address the assembly. She had been Earth's representative for 5 years, long enough to understand council politics, long enough to build alliances with progressive elements in other species. Today, I propose a fundamental change to council structure, she announced. The council was founded on the principle that older, more advanced civilizations had a duty to guide younger ones. But Earth's entry has proven that advancement isn't measured in years or technology alone. It's measured in adaptability, creativity, and the will to survive. I propose we reform the council from a ruling body into a true cooperative alliance. Equal members, equal voices, equal opportunity. The debate that followed would last for months, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The galaxy had seen what happened when the council tried to impose its will on a species that refused to submit. Other species were watching, learning, preparing to demand their own equal status. The age of council dominance was over. The age of galactic cooperation was beginning. And at the center of it all was humanity, the species that had laughed at the council's threats and then proven that laughter was not surrender, but confidence. Admiral Sujin Lee, now commanding the last laugh, patrolled the borders between council space and unexplored regions. Her mission was to contact new species before the council could, to offer friendship instead of demands, cooperation instead of conquest. She often thought back to that first day, when the council fleet had appeared in Earth's orbit with their arrogant ultimatum. She remembered Captain Deho's words, "They made us laugh." That was their first mistake. It wasn't their last mistake, but it was definitely their biggest one. The galaxy was learning a lesson that humans had known for millennia. Never underestimate the species that can find humor in the face of annihilation. Because that humor isn't denial. It's confidence born from surviving countless struggles. It's the knowledge that no matter what comes, humanity will adapt, overcome, and probably find the entire situation darkly amusing in retrospect. The Galactic Council had ordered Earth's capitulation. Humanity had laughed. And in that laughter was the sound of power shifting, of old orders crumbling, of a galaxy that would never be the same again.